On today's episode, have you ever scrolled past a men versus women debate and felt like both sides are missing the point? And today, I want to talk about how two truths can coexist. I want to honor that one truth does not have to erase or discount the other. So, we are seeing a heightened, I think since the presidential debates, there has been a even heightened push for gender wars, and there's so many clips of men versus women conversations, right? I mean, not just men versus women, but division, negativity is rampant. Some moments I felt triggered and empathetic to both sides, right? And I think since the rise of red pill content, there is, I think, how can I say this? There is divisiveness. I mean, it's since the beginning of time, there's been divisiveness pushed out there, but because we have access to social media and this constant information being pushed on us, it has taken a turn for the worse. And I think the movie, if you haven't seen it yet, Adolescence, kind of showcased that, like the negative effect that if we don't monitor our social media, if we have not been taught how to think critically, right, and objectively when we are consuming content, it can shape how you view yourself. It can shape how you may feel that other people think about you. It can even shape your behavior, right? If you're not exposed or to another side, or if you just simply have forgotten how to critically think, or you've never been taught that, right? Well, I'm Latonya McDonald, if you don't know me, and I'm the founder of Live and Be Great. And this is where nuance lives, okay? Because I am a multifaceted type of person. I cannot just stick to one thing. I wasn't born to do that. And I've accepted that, regardless of whether society kind of pushes us to stick with one lane when it comes to our dreams and aspirations, or we have certain rules when it comes to gender. We have certain rules as to what makes a successful person and what doesn't, a good person versus a bad person. We have certain rules just about in everything when it comes to deciding where to place people in a particular category, right? Especially since I don't think the school system or the educational system pushes acceptance of differences, right? So when it comes to binary thinking, it can be very, 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 very isolating and dangerous when we are set on it's either black or white and we don't make room for gray. And it's something I talk about all the time. And as a therapist, former therapist, empath, healer, you have to believe in change, right? You have to understand the full story, or you're not going to get the treatment right. You're not going to get the antidote right to be able to help people elevate and change their lives when they come to you for help. And if we didn't believe in change, we couldn't do our job, right? With any type of profession that requires an upgrade, you have to believe that things can be fixed or things can be altered, right? In a way that is beneficial to the person that you're trying to help. So naturally, we do want to identify with either the good guy or the victim, because if we can label someone else as all bad, it protects our heart from the pain of being confused, conflicted, or disappointed. But that's emotional survival, not emotional maturity. Healing asks us to see beyond who's right or who's wrong and into what's real. The truth is, we've all hurt someone while hurting, because hurt people hurt people. Like it's just what it is. There's a story behind the pain always. We've all misunderstood someone we're trying to love, and both things can be true at the same time. Okay? Now, in our society, men, when they express pain, oftentimes they instantly can be labeled weak or toxic. Right? If the little boys are not supposed to cry, that's for little girls, And when they do that, society is still doing that, which they are clearly. All right? Imagine someone who grew up being told those things. Don't cry or be tough. They learn to keep their feelings locked away. In a relationship, this person might unintentionally hurt their partner because they struggle to express what they're feeling or even understand their own emotions. It's not that they don't care, but they haven't learned how to connect with or share that part of themselves, right? Now, when it comes to women, on the other hand, oftentimes women can voice harm and instantly be labeled as bitter or gold digging, right? When they say, hey, I want more from this person, right? For example, think about someone who feels like they've always have to be the one to take charge, fix things, or make sure everyone else is happy. They might constantly be doing things for others, even when they're tired. Over time, this can lead to them feeling really worn out and resentful because they're giving so much without necessarily getting their own needs met. You need to have both. Like for example, I was having a conversation the other day, and we were talking about how a woman is being pushed on social media. Like sometimes you'll see women that will say, hey, my husband has to make this amount of money, or, I don't want to go to McDonald's for a date. I want to go over here. Right? And in one community, right, a privileged community, let's just go ahead and say white, in that community, that person may have come from a particular background, right? To where maybe that woman may have been taught that all she has to do is be pretty, okay? And she don't have to do nothing else but be pretty, be arm candy, and then just find a rich man that's willing to do all the work, right? But the other side of that is, what if that person was a Black woman, right? And we weren't raised well, I know I wasn't, and a lot of my friends were not raised to not fend for ourselves, right? Not work on ourselves or get a job or have our own money. We weren't raised that way. A lot of us in the Black community didn't come from this mindset that all we had to do was be pretty. No, we had to be pretty, and we had to be smart, and we had to work hard. Okay? So it might look different, right? If a Black woman is saying that, oftentimes if they're educated and they have their own money, oftentimes they're like, listen, I want my partner to match what I'm giving. Like I've seen this situation where it was a family of professionals, and the woman and the man were both doctors, right? And had the same, 13-hour shifts, sometimes 24-hour shifts. The woman still felt like she had to still keep the house clean, take care of the children, right? Be the emotional support for the children, make sure they got, all their stuff in orders, and cook dinner. right? And she was like, but that's what a wife's supposed to do, even though she's just as tired as her husband is, have the same exact profession, right? Have the same exact profession. But because she is still stuck, or both of them are still stuck in that this is what a woman does and this is what a man does type of mentality, we missed the gray area. Like, they're not what if you got the same job and you got the same amount of hours in the day, right? That means there needs to be balance. Okay. And I think a lot of people are missing that. And when they do the all men or all women type of situation, we miss the whole point, and it's quite dangerous, right? And when it comes to women saying, hey, I want my man to make this amount of money, but can you make that amount of money? Right? And if you can't, are you willing to take up the brunt of the cooking, the cleaning, and the household? If not, you can't just sit there and do nothing, because that puts you also in danger, right? That cannot be a situation. And is that a realistic situation based off of who you are as a couple, as a man and as a woman? Okay. Is it realistic based on your situation? Can the lifestyle that you both want afford just one person working? Can the lifestyle that you want afford someone, a wife that has to work and be the sole person responsible for keeping the house clean and taking care of children, right? Is that realistic? And that is the problem. That is the problem with binary thinking, right? And also, back to what I was saying, if a man is taught to not express his emotions, it's gonna come out somewhere, right? It's like shaking up a bottle of soda, okay, and going to drink it. At some point, it's going to explode. After a while, the can is going to bust, okay? Somebody's going to hit it, and just like a can of biscuits, right? It will explode. So we have to work on our thinking, especially when we're being pushed this, like, challenge yourself to see the full picture, get the full story, and allow space for the gray area, right? Now, when it comes to astrology, have you ever heard someone say, they're just a typical Leo, or I'm a Gemini, so I love to talk, right? I've already taught you, if you've been listening, and if you don't know, you are not just your sun sign, okay? Your chart is a mixture of different signs. It's all the planets, it's houses, right? When it comes to your birth chart. And sometimes certain planetary connections in your birth chart can show where you might have natural tension or challenges within yourself, okay? Within yourself. Forget, seeing one side or the other side to people that, you're trying to label if they're a good guy or bad guy, whatever the case may be. But within yourself, like, for example, if you're Mars is how you act, right? And your Venus, how you relate, are in a tricky spot. It might mean you naturally feel a push and pull between wanting to assert yourself and wanting to connect harmoniously, right? Like, assertive is that leadership. That could be the Leo personality, or that could be a Sagittarius type of personality, or Sagittarius placement there when it comes to asserting yourself. And wanting to connect harmoniously, that could be a Pisces placement in either of those, or a Libra placement in either of those, right? Based off of those personality traits or those gifts that each sign holds. It's like having two different parts of you that sometimes want different things, which can show up in relationships. Now, another system, we think about the energetic system of human design. If you've never heard of it, human design is a newer system that combines astrology, the I Ching, the Kabbalah, and the chakra system. It gives you a unique body graph, and you can look up if you have your birth time and you have your birthplace and your birth year, of course, you can get these charts done, right? And you can see what each placement, you can get books and things of that nature. I'm gonna, of course, if you listen to me, I'm gonna teach those different things, talk about those different things in different segments, because it's just very, very helpful, right? But one part of human design looks at your energy centers. And if your solar plexus, your center, which is connected to emotions, is undefined, it means you're likely a sponge for emotions. You pick up everyone else's feelings and can even amplify them. So if you're around someone upset, you might feel they're upset even more intensely, which can be overwhelming in a relationship if you don't realize it's not all yours. And I think the basic knowledge of psychology, when people talk about empathy or being an empath, right? Usually those people, if you look at their chart, they might have, if they're a true empath, where they feel other people's emotions very, very intensely, and you look at their chart, that solar plexus part in that graph will be undefined. I have an undefined solar plex, right? Solar plex center. So yeah, I often times struggle with trying to decipher what are my emotions and what are other people's emotions. Like, I've always been that person naturally to try to look at all sides of a story. And then I make my judgment based off of intention. If you intended to hurt me, then it's up. But my initial reaction, because I'm so empathetic, right? And that's how I'm wired, technically, is to try to understand why someone is acting that way. That is unpleasing. Try to understand their story first before I label them as good or bad, if I even get to that point. So I want you guys to notice both wounds and responsibilities. Okay? Like, what hurts, but what is also a standard that makes sense, It doesn't take you so far in the black or so far in the white, These systems aren't about blaming anyone. They're about understanding. When I talk about these different sciences, they help us see that some of our patterns are deeply ingrained, almost like our natural wiring. So it's like, how do we learn how to use that in the right way to where we can get to our purpose or live a fulfilling life? Do you see any of these wounds or patterns in yourself or in your relationships where there's a push and a pull or there's a misunderstanding? And knowing this, what responsibility can you take to understand yourself better and perhaps respond differently next time? I already explained one. Do these charts, right? Get more awareness about yourself so you can navigate properly in your relationships with more compassion for yourself first. Because if you're not giving grace to yourself, you're not going to give grace to anyone else. And clarity, right? How does that feel? So, tools to reframe that are practical when navigating that communication in relationships, navigating how you feel, understanding your trauma or the other person's trauma. Use and statements so you're not the black and white and just writing people off or writing yourself off, right? I'm hurt and curious is a good one, okay? I'm hurt by what you did, but I'm curious about why you did that. Be curious. Like, what happened? When you calm down, of course, it's very difficult when you're in fight or flight. Very, very difficult. Okay. I'm not even going I'm not even going to hold you. It is difficult. And it's good to be or understand, hey, he's wounded and accountable. Wounded could be that trauma that caused you to have certain triggers. But accountable is allowing yourself to feel those triggers, but you have to work on them. They can't just stay triggers. And every time, someone triggers you, whether intentionally or unintentionally, they get the full fire. They get punished or they get labeled, or you label yourself. No, 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 no. Let's acknowledge the pain, but also work on it, work through it, redefine it, reframe it. You're definitely going to see that push and pull when you watch the movie Adolescence. Definitely. I might do a review on that. But you're definitely going to see that push and pull that happens naturally. But the black and white with social media, that part is like, we gotta work on that. We gotta work through that. I want you to think about practicing a 60-second breath practice to pause before clapping back online, in person and online, because social media really, it's not your therapist, okay? I need y'all to stop doing that. 60-second breath. If you feel triggered, if you're in shock, if you can feel your body going into fight or flight. Before you say something that you can't take back, try to practice pausing. And yeah, you can practice that 60-second breath watching somebody else's stuff online, right? And before you respond or before you make that judgment, take a breath for 60 seconds based off of something that has triggered you, or you've decided to go ahead and align yourself with, or decided to go ahead and make a snap judgment. If you feel yourself reacting emotionally to something that you're watching or something that you're being told, take a breath first before you decide that, hey, this is what it is for me, the black or white situation. Try to look for the gray area, the in between. Now, if you're going to journal, right? Good journal prompt is, where am I oversimplifying gender pain? Okay? Where am I oversimplifying? That she's a gold digger, or he's weak, he's toxic, he's lazy, she's bitter. Where am I oversimplifying gender pain? What issues? What situations? Is it dating? Is it marriage? Is it gender roles? Is it girls should only wear dresses and boys should only wear pants? Is it the man must make the most money, right? Or the women must take care of the kids? Like, where am I oversimplifying gender pain? And oftentimes that's based off of your experience. If you look at your parents or your upbringing, you may have seen something and you're oversimplifying it based off of that experience because you've seen whatever it was in your household. What makes sense naturally, okay, to journal. Now, for deeper one-on-one guidance, my private sessions and my readings, they're open. Specifically, my readings, they're open only a few times a year, so go to liveandbegreat.com, okay? They're for those ones truly ready to unlearn the war, okay? War within self-worth in life, the blocks, okay? Only when you're ready, come to me, okay? Now, let's try to write down this affirmation if you have a pen and paper, okay? I can honor another's truth without abandoning my own. Again, I can honor another's truth without abandoning my own, right? Now, listen, please, please, please share this episode wherever you're watching it. Share this episode with someone that you may feel is stuck in the comment section trenches of social media, or based off of, your last conversation with them, they seem kind of like men are this way and women are this way type of, they in that yes or no man in between type of phase. please, please, please feel free to share it. Okay. Don't forget to follow me on my YouTube and IG is Live and Be Great with Latonya. My TikTok is Live and Be Great _ Latonya. All right. The next time we meet, I want to do a part 2, okay, of this conversation of that two things can be true at the same time, right? I want to tackle the family battlefield, adult children versus parents. Okay? Yes. That is something that I'm seeing because a lot of people go in no contact with the parents, right? And they're on both sides. Like both sides, we need more empathy on both sides, right? And we also need to allow ourselves, even in that conversation, to see all sides of the story. I'm not going to say it's right. I'm not going to say anything is wrong. No. We're just talking about how both truths can exist at the same time. All right? So, until next time, give yourself permission to live and be great.